show. So come on in and take a seat. Warrior class, we got the keys. Dun, 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 dun. To get you where you need to be, just study our show, and you're gonna grow like crazy. Watching you will see. Dun, 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 dun. Warrior class, we got the keys, just watch our show, 'cause it's for you and your babies.
Welcome to Warrior Class.
Where the teachers whoop ass.
And you will too.
If you pass. The first one, yes. The second one, I still gotta.
All right. This is the Top African Warriors of History episode.
Yeah, Bo.
But first, we're gonna do some news. So you got some news for us, Ominique?
Yes, so I want to share a few of the health pieces that Belay sent that we did not get to go over last week. See, the first one is that singing, and he talked about humming before. Now this is singing, which I would assume may do some of the same things, but it says singing can increase an immune antibody called SIG-A, which is a lowercase SIG, SIGA in the body up to 240% in less than an hour. This helps fight off germs and recover faster from illness. Like I said, he talked about humming before, but this singing now can help increase an immune antibody too. When I read a little deeper into it, it was talking about how it affects your cortisol levels. You know what? I'm sorry. That's a different one. But let's see. Yeah, no, that's the entirety of it. But there is a study out there. So if you want to look into it, it was posted by Get Sound RX. So you may be able to find more information on that.
And and maybe we'll do an episode of this, but there's when you're marching in the military, you sing songs,
right?
And it increases your health and everything. It increases your breathing, and so we'll probably do an episode on sound and singing and how it affects you.
Right. Wow. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. The second one I'm going to share from him is being stressed for too long physically shrinks your brain and makes you forget things. Says chronic stress literally shrinks the hippocampus, a part of your brain responsible for memory and emotional balance. A long-term study published in biological psychiatry confirmed that high cortisol levels damage brain cells and reduce brain volume over time. This is why you forget things when you're overwhelmed. So your brain isn't broken, it's exhausted. And that was the one that was talking about the high cortisol levels. Cortisol also has effects on other parts of your body. When I looked into it more, it says that it can cause weight gain, high blood pressure, increased blood sugar that can lead to diabetes, and a weakened immune system. So, it definitely has some detrimental effects that our community, definitely we hear about people having these sort of complaints all the time, these diagnoses. So we have to find a way to make sure that we are, one, avoiding stress, but also find a way to relieve any stress that we may feel that we find unavoidable. Of course, we had a show about meditation, I believe it was. Also, just taking long walks. A lot of different things can be meditations depending on how you go about them. Cleaning your house can be a meditation. So we have to find a way to kind of turn inward and relieve, some of the stress that we're feeling. Of course, we know it's by design, that we have these different things in our lives that cause us stress, because stress is a killer. So, as a group, we have to find ways to relieve that. What do you think, Baba? Baba, I think you might be muted. Yeah, I see your mic is off.
Mike.
Oh, there you go.
Okay. Well,
the show was on meditation, right? Wasn't the show on meditation?
We did a show on meditation, yes. You can do moving meditation, which we do in the Martial Arts Institute, African Martial Arts Institute. We do moving meditation. You can sit and you can you can sit and do it too, but we do it through what we call energy drills.
Absolutely, yeah. They definitely, after a while, I don't know if we've ever shown them on here, but after a while, you definitely fall into a place where you're just using your physical. You can even close your eyes while you're doing it, which I tried last week in class with someone. It worked with mixed results, but only because they were new. If you get a good experienced person that's used to doing them with you, y'all can really fall into a meditation, most definitely.
Let me see. Eugene Mason, Aket Cabas, Emmanuel Briggs.
Hey, y'all.
Peace.
Greetings. We appreciate you being here every week.
Right. And the other people lurking, peace. Peace, everybody.
Peace to the lurkers.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, boy.
Eyes closed are still eyes open. Well, they can be.
Right. True.
They can be. But when we, as warriors, even when we do deep breathing in war, we do it with our eyes open.
That's what's up, Eugene Mason. Greetings, Africans. That's I can't remember the elder's name. Baba. I remember his government name, but I'm trying to. Baba Mukasa. That's Greetings, Africans. So shout out to him. I think he's traveling on the continent right now. And let's see. I may have said. I know I was reading about how in South Carolina there. Were you about to say something, Baba?
No, I was saying, you got any other news for us?
I remember I was reading about how in South Carolina they're trying to make make abortion punishable by death.
Wow.
Right. Yeah, it's been introduced into their, legislative body or whatever. And they're trying to make it, because homicide there is punishable by death. And they're trying to classify, an unborn child in whatever stage as a person.
And which state is this?
South Carolina, which is, right next door to us. And they're anyone receiving or anyone who aids with abortion is like you can get up to 30 years in prison. with this particular legislation that they're introducing. So,
Wow.
more and more like The Handmaid's Tale all the time. If anyone has seen that,
Right.
but Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. There is I'm sorry, Baba. I know we have to get into the information, but there is one more very important video that I saw. This was on a former newscaster site. He goes around just interviewing people because he's no longer with this major news organization. But it was a elder that he was interviewing in Chicago, and the elder was talking about how he was kidnapped by ICE, how he got picked up. He was telling them the whole time, why are you messing with me? I'm a citizen. Like, why are you picking me up? And they just basically kept telling him to shut up. He said that he actually had like his birth certificate on him, other things in his bag because he was on his way some government office he had some business that he had to do. So he had all these documents on him. They never allowed him to show them the documents. And they just took him to a detention facility. And he was eventually released. But he said that when he was transported, that it was in the back of like a budget just a budget van that you move your furniture in when you're moving. He said there was about 40. There was enough people in the van that everyone couldn't sit down. Some people got to sit down, but most people had to stand up. And even though there was nothing to hold on to, no one fell over because there was that many people back there, basically. So, yeah. I also saw a post where someone said that one of Dr. Sebi's sons is being held in an ICE facility in Texas. So I forgot. I don't have the brother's name. Maybe I'll give that by the end of the show. But I mean, again, I know I'm preaching to the choir here. Most of the people who are watching this, more than likely, at least there are good people in the chat. They know what time it is. But when all of this started happening, I was seeing particularly some younger people online saying, well, they're breaking the law. What does that have to do with me? And what we always have to remember is they're going to find a way to bring it back to us. So we have to make sure that we're thinking about that in advance, because they're always going to find a way to bring it back to us. All of a sudden, all of us are Haitian. And since there's no court, there's no investigation, like you get picked up. And I was see the other day, a 19-year-old she was in Texas and she was going to visit family for Thanksgiving, and she's already been deported. Like they picked her up in the airport in Texas, and she's gone already. And this was, within a few days. So we just got to be on point.
Now, who was it asked? iManifesto says, does Baba know if Sifu James from West Coast, his Wing Chun looks very effective? If you mean Professor James Herndon, I've talked about him on this show before. When I moved to Georgia, I got a call from, if you're talking about James Herndon, he called me and asked me how things were going and everything. And he warned me about the gatekeepers in Atlanta, the martial art gatekeepers. And he said, because you're young, but you're a master, you're going to have people who are hating on you. Because I was young when I moved here. I was like, 30? He said, you're going to have people who are hating on you, there. And he was right. He was right. He does a lot of wrist locks, etc. I believe that's James Herndon. James Herndon, he does, and actually he does not Wing Chun, he does Jeet Kune Do, which is rooted in Wing Chun. He does Jeet Kune Do and small circle jiu-jitsu. And small circle jiu-jitsu is where the wrist locks and all of that come into play. But yeah, he's very, very good. He's one of the few Asian stylist martial artists that I know that I respect. I mean, when I say Asian, I'm talking mainland Asia, like Japan, Korea, China. Now there are many from Southeast Asia that I respect, but you know, we're talking Muay Buran, Muay Thai, the Filipino and Indonesian martial arts, Eskrima, Silat. There are many that I respect, but from that mainland China, Korea, Japan, it's not that many that I respect, really. But and the Wing Chun, I mean Jeet Kune Do, we know that comes from Bruce Lee, who's from Hong Kong, and then originally he was from Seattle, and then he moved to Hong Kong, and then back to Seattle. And small circle jiu-jitsu is by Professor Wally J, who is Japanese, and created small circle jiu-jitsu, which most jiu-jitsu deals on a larger circle. He deals on a small circle. So this guy says this Wing Chun, he's also into chopper bikes. Now I don't know who that is. I don't know who that is. Yeah. All right.
Darian, welcome.
Yes, I Manifesto, Jadarian, everybody who's out there. Okay. So we ready to get into it?
Yeah, Bob. Absolutely. Unless I'm the first person, and then
no, I'm the first one. All right. Determining the greatest or the top African warriors is subjective, based on their specific achievements, military innovations, or cultural impact. Here are several individuals consistently mentioned for their significant impact on African history and their formidable warrior skills.
First up, we have Sajidi Kazinga Homa. How's that, Baba?
Almost, but yeah. It's Sigidi Kasenza Gakona.
Okay, Sigidi Kazenza Gakoma. Known simply to history as Shaka. He was not merely a king. He was a storm risen from the plains of southeastern Africa, a force that reshaped the destiny of nations. In a land between the towering Drakensberg and the Indian Ocean, a region dotted with Guni chiefdoms, he forged a single mighty kingdom whose echo would thunder long after his death.
Shaka was the son of Senzan Gakona. So his name is Senzan Gakona, which means son of.
Yeah. I learned a little bit of Zulu when my son took Zulu, so I know that little thing.
Ruler of a modest Zulu chiefdom, and Nandi, daughter of Langani chief. His birth was shrouded in scandal, whispered about in homesteads, mocked by rivals, and nearly denied by his own father. Some claim Nandi was not pregnant, only suffering from the bite of the Ishaka beetle, a cruel insult that would one day become the child's name, Ishaka. Driven from Senzanga Kona's homestead, Nandi carried her young son into exile among the Langani. There, the boy who would become a conqueror first tasted humiliation. He was taunted, beaten, made to feel the weight of fatherlessness. But hardship tempered him like iron in the furnace. Famine and strife later cast Shaka into the territory of the Mtathuena, where the great chief Dingiswayo ruled. Here too, Shaka suffered mockery from jealous youth, yet beneath the ridicule a fire grew. At 23, he entered the Mtathuena army. There, everything changed.
On the battlefield, he discovered his destiny. His towering frame and fierce will made him a natural leader. His courage was so great that Dingiswayo himself took notice, elevating him swiftly through the ranks. Here, Shaka earned the praise name Nodume Lizi. Nodume Lizi, he who sits and makes the earth tremble, and tremble it soon would. When Shaka's father died, Dingiswayo equipped his protege with warriors. With their support, Shaka overthrew and assassinated his half-brother, Sigujana, claiming the Zulu chieftaincy. Though still a vassal, he ruled with unleashed ambition, conquering neighboring clans, including the Langeni, whose cruelty he never forgot. But destiny turned when... I'm sorry, just a second, y'all. Excuse me. But destiny turned when Dingiswayo met his end, murdered by the ruthless Ziwede of the Diwan. That is not something to laugh about. Ignorance is not funny. With his mentor gone and the Mtetwa scattered, Shaka rose like a lion in a field of trembling prey. He united the broken pieces of the region beneath his own command, forging a kingdom from chaos.
Zwide moved to crush the upstart king, but Shaka's genius ignited the battlefield. At Gakoli, he outmaneuvered the Ndwandwe. But the true reckoning came at the Umtaluze River. Shaka feigned retreat, luring Zwide's army deep into hostile terrain. Then, like a closing fist, his regiment struck. The Ndwandwe state collapsed. Its remnants fled north, sowing further upheaval, the beginning of the immense migration later called the Mfokane. Shaka stood supreme.
Once crowned in blood and triumph, Shaka reshaped society in his own image. The old long-throwing spear was cast aside. In its place, Shaka introduced the short stabbing spear, the Ikwa.
Yeah, that's how it sounds. That's how it sounds when it enters the body. Ikwa.
And demanded warriors fight at arm's length, face to face, death breathing on death. He developed the deadly crescent formation, the buffalo horns, a tactic that would devastate armies across the region. Barefoot, hardened, and ruthless, his MP became the terror of Southern Africa. Boys were gathered into age regiments, trained, fed, housed, and shaped into one people. Women, too, were formed into Amabutho, bound to the king's discipline. No men could marry until Shaka decreed it. No women who bore his child survived. No woman who bore his child survived. His royal kraals were ruled not by wives, but by indomitable royal women who governed in his absence.
And a kraal is a hut.
Okay.
That's where they lived in the kraal.
And we did have someone in the chat asking if we were going to address women. Of course.
Yes.
This is warrior class.
By the time white traders reached Port Natal in 1824, Shaka commanded a centralized monarchy stretching from the Pongola to the land south of the Tugela. He greeted the newcomers with curiosity and calculation, eager to learn their ways of war and advantage. His capital, Bulawayo, the place of killing, was monumental. His next, Dukuza, the place where one gets lost, was even larger, a labyrinthine fortress of power. But beneath the splendor, terror simmered. Shaka's grief over the death of his mother, Nandi, unleashed a tidal wave of cruelty. Thousands died because their tears were too few, their mourning too quiet. Even allied chieftains were scourged for failing to grieve loudly enough. The king who had unified a nation began to lose the nation's heart.
While Shaka's armies journeyed abroad, vengeance grew at home. On September 22nd, 1828, as the sun set over Dukuza, Shaka's bodyguard, Mbafa, along with his half-brothers Digane and Imlangana, approached the king. In a sudden storm of steel, they stabbed him. As the life drained from Africa's most formidable ruler, he whispered to Digani, "You kill me thinking you will rule, but the swallows will rule." He spoke of the white people, whose mud-walled houses reminded him of the swallow's nest. Still, his assassin struck again. Family members later claimed his final words were, "Are you stabbing me, kings of the earth? You will end by killing one another." Shaka Kagenzanga Ona, king, conqueror, tyrant, visionary, was hurriedly buried in a grain pit. No heir, no ceremony, only legend. And none would ever eclipse the shadow of the man who rose from humiliation to command empires, whose wars reshaped the face of a nation, and whose name still rumbles like distant thunder across the plains of history.
Next, we will examine a warrior nearly as famous and just as well respected as Shaka, Hannibal Barca. He lived and died more than 2 millennia ago, yet his name still is revered and feared across history. Hannibal Barca, Carthaginian general, master of strategy, and the man Romans would remember with a shudder as their greatest enemy. His legend was carved into the mountains he crossed, the armies he annihilated, and the fear he breathed into the heart of Rome itself. Hannibal was born in 247 BCE in the sun-scorched citadel of Carthage, the jewel of North Africa. In that city of merchants and warriors, a father placed a hand upon his young son's shoulder and forged a vow that will echo for decades: never be a friend to Rome. From that moment, Hannibal carried a burning hostility deep within him, a flame that will one day set continents ablaze. Trained in the Carthaginian army, schooled in strategy, fearless in battle, he rose swiftly through the ranks. His hour came in 219 BCE when he attacked Saguntum in Spain. With that single strike, he awakened a sleeping giant and ignited the Second Punic War. But what followed was something no Roman strategist had dared imagine.
Excuse me. I'm trying to open it. It's not responding. Give me just a second. Oh, there we go. In 218 BCE, Hannibal led his army of hardened Africans, Iberian veterans, and towering war elephants on a death-defying march over the Alps. Blizzards clawed at their faces, cliffs devoured men and beasts, and yet they pressed on. They came down the mountains not broken, but ready for conquest. Rome reeled. Who was this man who appeared from the very spine of the world, carrying elephants like specters of war?
At the Trebia River, Hannibal lured the Roman army into a trap and closed the jaws of death around them. At Lake Trasimene, he used the morning fog as a curtain, hiding his soldiers until the Romans marched straight into annihilation. And then came Cannae, the masterpiece. Here, Hannibal executed his legendary double envelopment maneuver, surrounding a Roman army nearly twice the size of his own. The slaughter was so complete, so horrifying that Rome's greatest empire shook with terror. From that day forward, mothers in Rome whispered to their children, "Hannibal is at the gates."
Hannibal knew that terror was a weapon sharper than any sword. Fear fractured Roman confidence, eroded their leadership, and undermined their rigid tactics. Meanwhile, he bound his own soldiers to him with steel loyalty, sharing their hardships, sleeping on bare earth, eating the same rations. His presence alone uplifted them. To them, he was not merely a commander. He was destiny incarnate. Hannibal studied Rome until he knew it better than many Romans did. He exploited the fatal flaw in its leadership. Two consuls, alternating power, often unequal in skill. He waited for the inexperienced ones. He used spies bought with Carthaginian silver mined in Spain, anticipating every Roman movement, outthinking every counterstrike. Rome was forced to change. Their armies became more flexible, more cunning, more ruthless. In trying to defeat Hannibal, Rome learned how to conquer the world.
Though unstoppable on the battlefield, Hannibal's strength was slowly choked by the one force he could not outmaneuver: Carthage's refusal to send reinforcements. Rome adopted a new strategy: avoid Hannibal, starve him, outlast him. For 16 long years, he remained in Italy, undefeated, yet slowly isolated. Then came the final reckoning, the Battle of Zama in 202 BCE. On the plains of North Africa, Hannibal faced Scipio Africanus, a Roman general who had studied Hannibal's tactics and now turned them against him. Hannibal was defeated. The war was lost. His legendary career would never recover. Pursued by Rome for decades afterwards, he refused to be paraded in chains. In 183 BCE, he took poison, declaring, "Let us free the Romans from their long anxiety, since they think it tries their patience too much to wait for the death of one old man." Hannibal Barca remains one of history's greatest military minds, a strategist whose brilliance influenced Caesar, Napoleon, and Patton. His march over the Alps, his devastating victories, and his psychological mastery did more than threaten Rome. They reshaped it. And though he never took the city, Rome will forever remember the man who came closer than any enemy in its history. Even today, Hannibal's shadow still stands at Rome's ancient gates.
All right. Now we will look at Amanirenas. Is that right? Amanirenas. Amanirenas, the one-eyed lioness who defied Rome. Between 25 and 21 BCE, when emperors ruled from marble palaces and the Roman eagle cast its shadow across continents, one ruler, a Kandake or woman ruler of Kush, rose to challenge the greatest empire on earth. Her name was Amanirenas, and she did what legions of male rulers could not. She halted Rome's advance and forced even Augustus Caesar to retreat.
Rome had seized Egypt, and Augustus wanted more. His armies marched southward into fertile Nubia, hungry for land, gold, and tribute. They imposed crushing taxes on the people of Meroe, choking the lifeblood of the Kushite economy. But in Meroe, the throne did not belong to a timid monarch. Upon the death of her husband, Teretikase, Amanirenas ascended. A queen, if you will, with fire in her blood and iron in her gaze. When the Roman legions temporarily withdrew for a campaign in Arabia, Amanirenas seized her moment. With 30,000 warriors, she swept north like a desert storm. Her army captured the Roman-held cities of Aswan, Philae, and Elephantine, smashing garrisons, plundering storehouses, and dragging Romans away in chains. For Rome, it was unthinkable. For Nubia, it was glorious. Retreating to El Dake, Amanirenas braced for the clash that will ignite a 4-year war, the Meroitic Roman War, one of the most pivotal conflicts in Nubian history.
Amanirenas was remarkable, but she was not an anomaly. Nubia's lands had long been shaped by Kandake, formidable warrior women who ruled beside or in place of kings. Over 3,000 years in Kerma, Napta, and Meroe, women commanded armies, signed treaties, and carved their triumphs into the stone of temples. Amanirenas ruled at the same time Cleopatra governed Egypt and Mark Antony battled for Rome, until Augustus toppled them both. She would not be toppled so easily. One of the most dramatic proofs of her victories lies in a bronze head of Augustus Caesar, unearthed not on a Roman battlefield, but buried beneath the steps of a Kushite temple. Its eyes of calcite still stare wide with helpless shock. Kushites walked across the head daily, a ritual reminder. Rome may rule the world, but it would not rule them. In Meroe's temples, artists carved images of Kandake towering over captive Romans. Power, femininity, and ferocity were not opposites in Kush. They were inseparable.
Rome could not ignore such defiance. Augustus sent Petronius, the governor of Egypt, to crush the Kandake's rebellion. He demanded she return the spoils of war. Amanirenas answered with silence and steel. The Roman legions advanced, seizing Qasr Ibrim and building a fort there. Petronius then pushed towards Napata, the queen's royal residence. Yet even Strabo's Roman account trembles with uncertainty. Distances did not align. Timelines strained belief. Kushite inscriptions remain largely unreadable. A veil still hangs over the truth of that war, one written in a language scholars have only just begun to unlock.
By 21 BCE, both armies were exhausted, their victories mixed with ashes. But the peace negotiations told the real story. Amanirenas sent envoys to meet Augustus on the island of Samos. The emperor, master of the most powerful empire on earth, granted her 2 extraordinary concessions. The hated tax of Meroe was abolished, and Roman forces withdrew southward, ceding territory back to Nubia. Rome had never before made such concessions to an African kingdom. Despite the ravages of war, Amanirenas had secured Nubian sovereignty. She had repelled the empire that swallowed nations whole. The kingdom of Kush would eventually fade into history, absorbed generations later by Rome's expanding reach. But Amanirenas, the one-eyed lioness, the queen who stood against Augustus himself, would remain one of the few leaders in all of history who resisted Rome, who resisted Roman conquest and forced the empire to bargain. Her name still stands among the greatest figures of ancient warfare, a leader who fought for her land, her people, and her sovereignty, and won.
Now, in the 12th century, when the Yoruba kingdoms were young and the world still shimmered with spirits, there lived a woman whose courage would bend the arc of history. Her name was Moremi Ajasoro, a ruler, a legend, a mother whose sacrifice burned brighter than any crown.
Ile-Ife, cradle of the Yoruba people, was under siege. From the depths of the forest came fearsome invaders, the Ugbo, the forest people. But to the Ife, these raiders were not men. They appeared as spirits of the overworld, Orarun, distinguished in raffia masquerades that turned them into towering, faceless beings. They swooped down upon the kingdom, enslaving its people, dragging them away in chains of terror. The warriors of Ife trembled. The king could not defend his people. The gods were silent. And then, from the palace, stepped a woman whose courage rivaled the spirits themselves.
Moremi Ajasoro was no ordinary woman. Beautiful, wise, and fiercely brave, she was the wife of Oramiyan, the giant son of the legendary Oduduwa. When she saw her people being tormented and carried away, she refused to accept a life of fear. She went to the sacred river Asimirine and made a terrible vow. Reveal the weakness of my people's enemies, and I shall give you whatever you ask. The river god accepted, and destiny stirred. Moremi did the unthinkable. She allowed herself to be captured. She walked straight into the arms of the Ugbo, not as a victim, but as a weapon. Because of her beauty, her grace, and the blessing of Asimirine, she was taken to the ruler of the Ugbo and made his queen. Behind the walls of her enemy's palace, Moremi watched. She learned. She listened. She uncovered the secret behind the terrifying spirits. The creatures were men disguised in raffia, their strength not divine but human. And when the truth was hers, she fled under the cloak of night, running home with the secret that would break the chains of her people.
When Moremi returned to Ile-Ife, she revealed everything. The Ife warriors prepared fire, the one thing raffia could not withstand. When the Ugbo attacked again, flame met fiber. Their disguises burned. Their illusion fell. They were exposed as mortal. And with that knowledge, Ife rose. Ife conquered. Ife was free. Moremi had saved her people.
But the river Asimirine had not forgotten her promise. Moremi returned to the river to honor her vow. There she learned the price of victory. She must sacrifice her only son, Oluorogbo. No blade of war had ever wounded her as these words did. She begged, she wept, she pleaded for a lesser price, but the gods do not bargain. And so with a shattered heart, Moremi gave up the child she loved more than life itself. Her screams became the grief of a nation. Her tears soaked the red earth of Ife. The people, devastated by her sacrifice, gathered around her and said, "We will be your children forever." And to this day, the sons and daughters of Ife call themselves the eternal children of Moremi. The 80 festival was created to honor her sacrifice. Her story lives in songs, sculptures, and the memories of the Yoruba people. Schools bear her name. University halls honor her spirit. And in 2017, a towering statue of Moremi was raised in Ile-Ife, the tallest statue in Nigeria, the fourth tallest in Africa. a monument to the warrior whose love saved the kingdom. Moremi Ajasoro, the leader from Opa, the wife of Oramian, the woman who walked into the enemy's camp for her people and paid with her only child, remains one of Africa's greatest heroines. A queen of courage, a mother of sacrifice, a legend eternal.
In the 19th century, when European empires stretched their claws across Africa, one man stood in their path like a wall of iron. His name was Samori Ture, warrior, ruler, cleric, strategist. To his people, he was Al-Memi, a commander of the faithful. To the French, he was the African storm that would not break.
Samori Ture was born around 1830 in Manyambala Baladugu, in a world already shifting under the weight of European trade and weapons. His father, a Dayula merchant, wanted to tame his restless spirit, so he sent the boy to trade cola nuts and cloth. But destiny had other plans. In 1853, raiders from the powerful Sise clan attacked his village of Sanankoro and captured his mother. Samori did the unthinkable. He walked into the enemy's stronghold at Medina and offered himself in exchange for her freedom. He stayed in their service for 7 long years, not as a broken captive, but as a rising warrior. He learned to handle firearms, the disciplines of armies, the strategy of war. And he embraced Islam, which would become the spine of his future empire. When he was finally freed with his mother, Samori walked out of captivity not as a victim, but as a man forged by hardship.
The Manding region was torn apart by roaming war bands, little more than armed gangs preying on the weak. Samori joined one of them and quickly clashed with its leader. After being whipped for defiance, he left and took command of another band. They camped outside villages, taxed travelers, and pressured communities until they accepted his protection. What began as survival slowly transformed into statecraft. Village by village, battle by battle, he spread his authority through Tehran and beyond. He seized Besendugu in 1873, declared war on rival kings, and used a deadly mix of strategy, persuasion, and bribery, famously turning a powerful lieutenant, Jomoro Ajigbe Diakite, a gift of cola nuts and gold. By the time his enemies realized what he was building, it was too late. He was no longer merely a warlord. He was Fa'ama, ruler of the lands between the Milo, Sankarani, and the Dion rivers. Victories brought allies. The Bait Empire of Kakan, a theoretic state, sought his support. Samori agreed, binding his sword to the cause of Islam. He deepened his faith, learning from scholars, and began to see his rule not just as a conquest, but as a religious mission. Together with his allies, he besieged cities, negotiated the submission of powerful chiefs, and claimed gold-rich Bure, the region of Wasasulu. By the late 1870s, Samori's authority stretched across what is now Guinea, southern Mali, North Cote. I can never. Oh my goodness.
Cote d'Ivoire.
Northern Ivory Coast. I'm sorry, Cote d'Ivoire.
Cote d'Ivoire.
Cote d'Ivoire, and beyond. He imported modern rifles through the British port of Freetown, trained blacksmiths to repair and copy them, and built a standard army standing army of tens of thousands. In 1878, he proclaimed himself Fa'ama of the Wasasulu Empire. Soon after, he would take an even greater title, Al-Mami, leader of the faithful, ruler in the name of Islam.
European ambition eventually collided with Samori's growing empire. The French, expanding from Senegal and dreaming of a belt of colonies stretching to the Nile, claimed towns and allies on Samori's doorstep. When they claimed protection over Kandake, sheltering one of his enemies, Samori answered with fire. He sacked Kandake in 1882. French troops pursued him to Samaya, confident in their modern weapons. In the first brutal clash, Samori's men suffered heavy losses, but the Al-Mami adapted fast. He abandoned suicidal frontal charges for guerrilla tactics, hit-and-run cavalry, and supply line harassment. He drove the French back to Niger. Word spread. There was a leader in the interior who could stand against the whites. His prestige soared. His army grew. His empire hardened.
But Samori's enemies were not just European. He balanced alliances and wars with neighboring Muslim states, pagan kingdoms, and rival clans. He besieged cities like Sikasso, fought the Sise, crushed rebellions in Wasulu. I keep feeling like I'm saying this wrong. Wasulu, is that right?
Yes.
Crushed rebellions in Wasulu and forced Islamic law across his domains, sometimes harshly. When some of his own vassals rose against forced conversions and the destruction of sacred sites, he responded with brutal repression. Those who defied him were starved, burned out, or cut down. To some, he was protector and reformer. To others, he was a tyrant cloaked in faith. But no one doubted his resolve.
Treaties with France were signed, broken, and signed again, each one a pause before the next storm. When the French attacked Kankan and Bisandugu in 1891, Samori knew his fortresses could not withstand artillery. He shifted to a strategy of scorched earth and mobility, emptying cities, burning crops, and ensuring the French advance into wasteland. For years, he retreated eastward, always fighting, always regrouping. His empire transformed into a moving war machine. Thousands of soldiers, thousands more civilians herded forward into new lands. He conquered Kong, fought the British on the fringes of the Gold Coast, and tried to weave an anti-European alliance. But every year, the noose tightened. The British cut off arms sales. The French blocked trade routes. Rebellion sparked in his wake. Old allies failed or turned, yet still, Samori would not surrender.
By 1898, after the fall of Sikasso, the French turned their full might against him. Samori pushed his people toward Liberia, hoping to find refuge or simply space to regroup. But the mountains of western Côte d'Ivoire were unforgiving. Food was scarce. Locals resisted. French columns harried him. His army and followers starved. Desertion grew. The once mighty Wasulu Empire was now an exhausted column of survivors. On September 29th, 1898, using information from deserters, Captain Henri Gourad surprised Samori at Gulimu. The Amami, who had defied a European empire for 16 years, was captured without a fight. Samori Ture was taken first to Kayes, then to St. Louis in Senegal, and finally deported to a prison island in Gabon. Masaga, in Gabon, Masaga, a place so deadly that prisoners called it dry guillotine. He tried once to end his own life rather than rot in exile, but death refused him that day. On June 2nd, 1900, weakened and far from home, Samori Ture died of pneumonia. He died not in battle, but in chains, yet his name would refuse to stay buried. For the French colonizers, Samori was first the villain whose defeat justified their rule. He was at first the villain whose defeat justified their rule. We saved you from his wars, they told the people. But African thinkers and freedom fighters later reclaimed him as a symbol of resistance, a king who refused to bow, a martyr of anti-colonial struggle. In some regions that suffered under his campaigns, he remains a dark memory. In others, he is a hero whose story is whispered with pride. His great-grandson, Ahmed Sekou Touré, will become the first president of independent Guinea, carrying the surname of the man who once fought to keep foreign powers out. Today, Samori Ture remains lie at the Kemayan Mausoleum in Conakry. His empire is gone. The borders he fought over have changed, but his legend, the boy who ransomed himself for his mother, the warrior who built an empire on faith and iron, the ruler who fought France until exile and death, still strides across the memories of West Africa like a lion in the dusk.
At the turn of the 20th century, when the British Empire swaggered across West Africa, guns gleaming, flags unfurled, the Ashanti Kingdom faces greatest humiliation. Their king exiled, their chiefs taken away in chains, and now their very soul demanded as tribute. From the town of Ijesu, an old woman rose to answer. Her name was Yaa Asantewaa. Yaa Asantewaa was born around 1840 in Besise, in Ashanti land. She was not born into quiet luxury. She farmed the earth around Boankra, married into a polygamous household in Kumasi, and raised a daughter. Her brother, Afrane Panin, became chief of Adweso. Through him and through the matrilineal bloodlines of the Ashanti, Yaa Asantewaa was elevated to one of the most powerful and sacred positions in the kingdom, Queen Mother of Ijesu. In Ashanti tradition, this was no symbolic title. The Queen Mother advised kings, helped choose successors, and guarded the spiritual heart of the nation, the Golden Stool, the throne of the Ashanti soul. Yaa Asantewaa watched her world changed. A civil war in the 1880s, internal strife, the tightening grip of the British. When her brother died in 1894, she used her authority to nominate her grandson as chief of Ijesu. But in 1896, he was seized and exiled to the Seychelles, along with Asante Hene Prempeh I and other leaders. Piece by piece, the British tried to behead the kingdom. Instead, they awakened his lioness.
After exiling the king, the British governor, Frederick Hodgson, made a fatal mistake. He demanded the Golden Stool. To the British, it was just an exquisite royal object, something to sit on, something to display. To the Ashanti, it was the living symbol of the nation's spirit, never to be sat upon, never to leave their control. In Kumasi, the remaining Ashanti chiefs gathered in secret to discuss their humiliation, the missing king, and now this outrageous demand. Many were fearful. Some spoke of negotiation, others of caution. Yaa Asantewaa listened. Then she rose. Her voice cut through the room. How can a proud and brave people like the Ashanti sit quietly while white men take away our king and chiefs and then dare to demand the Golden Stool? If you, the chiefs of Ashanti, will not fight, then exchange your loincloths for my undergarments. To seal her words, she seized a gun and fired it in front of the assembled men. The message was clear. If men would not lead, a woman would.
Yaa Asantewaa was chosen by a circle of Ashanti rulers to be war chief, the first and only time in Ashanti history that a woman held that title. Before the war began, she stood before the men and youth of Ashanti and spoke again, not as a frail elder, but as the voice of a wounded nation. She reminded them of the burning of their palace, the looting of treasures passed down from their ancestors, the kidnapping of their kings, the insult of being declared a protectorate by strangers wielding guns. Then she posed the question, shall we sit down and be dehumanized again and again? Is it not better to perish in defense of the Golden Stool than live forever as slaves? She declared herself ready to lead them into war, and the Ashanti rose.
In March 1900, Yaa Asantewaa led an army of roughly 5,000 fighters in an uprising that would become known as the War of the Golden Stool, the Yaa Asantewaa War, and the last great Ashanti-British War. The Ashanti laid siege to the British fort in Kumasi, trapping soldiers and colonial force officers inside. The fort where they hid still stands today. For months, the Ashanti fought fiercely. The British, shaken, eventually brought in reinforcements, about 1,400 troops armed with modern artillery. The cost was terrible. More than 2,000 Ashanti warriors died. Around 1,000 British and Allied troops were killed. It was the bloodiest of the Anglo-Ashanti conflicts. And though the British eventually broke the siege and consolidated their rule, they never laid hands on the true Golden Stool. The decoy stool was presented instead. The real one was hidden, guarded by secrecy and oath, safe from foreign hands.
During the suppression of the rebellion, Yaa Asantewaa and several nobles were captured. She was sent to exile on the island of Seychelles, far away from her forests and people. There on October 17, 1921, Yaa Asantewaa died. She never saw her kingdom free. She never walked again in the lands of Ijesu, but her story did not end in exile. In 1924, 3 years after her death, Prempeh I and other exiled Ashanti leaders were allowed to return. He made sure that the remains of Yaa Asantewaa and others were brought home for royal burial. And in 1957, decades after her voice echoed throughout the council at Kumasi, her dream came to life. The Ashanti Protectorate became part of an independent nation, Ghana, the first West African country to break free from colonial rule.
Finally, we examine Nzinga Mbande. In the late 1500s, in the war-torn lands of Indango, which is now northern Angola, a girl was born into royal blood and brutal times. Her name was Nzinga, she who twists, a name taken from the struggle of her birth. Her father would one day be Ngola Kulombo, king of Indango. Her world would be fire, gunpowder, and betrayal.
Hold on.
I feel like I should almost read it over.
You can.
Finally, we examine Nzinga Mbande. In the late 1500s, in the war-torn lands of Ndongo, in what people now know as northern Angola, a girl was born into royal blood and brutal times. Her name was Nzinga, she who twists, a name taken from the struggle of her birth. Her father would one day be Ngola Kilombo, king of Ndongo. Her world would be fire, gunpowder, and betrayal.
From childhood, Nzinga was not treated like a spare ornament of the royal court. Her father adored her. Because she wasn't seen as a direct male heir, he lavished her with opportunities that were rare for a girl. She joined war councils and legal councils. She handled a battle axe, the weapon of Ndongan warriors. She accompanied her father to rituals and ceremonies. She learned to read and write Portuguese from missionaries. While other royal daughters were groomed for marriage, Nzinga was being trained for rule. Outside the palace walls, the kingdom crumbled. The Portuguese had arrived with guns, priests, contracts, and chains. Villages burned. People were carried away as slaves by the tens of thousands. Some Ndongan nobles broke away from their crown and sold their loyalty for European power. Ndongo's kings tried war. They tried peace. They tried alliances. Nothing held.
In 1617, Nzinga's father died. Her brother Mbande took the throne. He seized power with knives and fear. Rival princes were killed. Family members quietly disappeared. Nzinga's own son was murdered, and she and her sisters were forcibly sterilized. Eventually, she fled into exile in Tamba. But her story was not destined to end as a discarded princess. The same brother who had hurt her so deeply realized she had something he did not: skill. When the Portuguese brought Ndongo to the brink of ruin, King Mbande begged her to come back as an ambassador. In 1622, Nzinga arrived in Luanda, capital of Portuguese Angola, at the head of a glittering envoy. The Portuguese governor expected another broken African supplicant. Instead, he got a ruler in waiting, dressed in feathers, jewels, and the royal finery of Ndongo, a living declaration that her culture was not inferior. When the time came for talks, the Portuguese officials were seated in chairs. Nzinga was offered only a mat on the floor. It was an insult, a message: you are beneath us. Nzinga simply signaled to one of her attendants. He got down on his hands and knees, and she sat on his back like a living throne, speaking to the governor eye to eye. In that moment, she made it clear: Ndongo might be under pressure, but she would not kneel.
With charm, strategy, and ruthlessness disguised as diplomacy, Nzinga blamed past wars on her young and mistaken brother, promised peace and cooperation, allowed Portuguese traders and missionaries access, and refused firmly to accept Ndongo as a conquered vassal. She accepted baptism, took the Christian name Ana de Souza, and wrapped her enemy's religion around herself like a cloak, as a tool, not a surrender. A peace treaty was signed. Nzinga returned to Ndongo in triumph, but the ground beneath her was already cracking.
The peace did not hold. In the Mbangala, ferocious warrior bands steeped in harsh ritual and blood ravaged lands. The Portuguese broke promises, seized more territory, stirred rebellion among Ndongo nobles. In 1824, King Mbande...
In 1624.
Excuse me. In 1624, King Mbande was broken, depressed, and stripped of power. Soon after he died, perhaps by his own hand, perhaps by poison. Whispers said Nzinga had cleared the path to the throne. What is certain is this: he wanted her as his successor, and she moved with speed. She seized the sacred symbols of kingship, silenced court rituals, and took the title Ngola.
Silence court rivals.
Silence court rivals, excuse me, y'all. Silence court rivals and took the title of Ngola, the ruler of Ndongo, the very word which would lend its sound to Angola. There was one problem: a young nephew, potential heir and rival. She married the Mbagala war chief who held him, and then had the child killed. It was ruthless. It was personal. It was political. It was also, in her mind, justice for the son she had lost. The nobles murmured that she was a woman, a Christian, a negotiator, unfit. She countered that she was royal by blood, victorious by strength, and chosen by fate. The Portuguese, now threatened by her growing support, turned their backing to a puppet ruler and declared war on Nzinga.
Outnumbered and under attack, Nzinga retreated from Ndongo with what remained of her followers. The Portuguese were more interested in recapturing slaves and catching her, which allowed her to slip deeper inland. She needed allies. She found them in the very people who had once destroyed her homeland, the Mbangala. Mbangala society was brutal and militaristic, bound by terrifying initiation rituals and warlike faith. Nzinga agreed to marry the warlord Kasanje, to undergo initiation and to merge their forces. She didn't copy their culture, she weaponized it. She blended her Mbundu royal heritage, Mbangala military ferocity, and her own genius for statecraft to create a new power, a mobile, disciplined, terrifying army that drew escaped slaves, exiled nobles, and hardened fighters into its ranks. From this base, between 1631 and 1635, Nzinga conquered the neighboring kingdom of Mutamba. She deposed its ruler, spared her life, but branded her, and took her daughter as a warrior companion. Mutamba, unlike Ndongo, was used to female rulers. Here, Nzinga found a stable throne. From Mutamba, she built a wealthy state, redirecting wealth and power away from the Portuguese.
In 1641, the world shifted. The Dutch West India Company, allied with the Kingdom of Congo, captured Luanda and expelled the Portuguese. Nzinga moved like lightning. She sent envoys to the Dutch, offered them an alliance, proposed an Afro-Dutch front to crush Portugal together. The Dutch agreed. They sent soldiers and an ambassador to her camp. Together, they drove the Portuguese deeper into the interior. From 1641 to 1644, Nzinga claimed large parts of Ndongo, defeated the Portuguese in several battles, and surrounded their strongholds and nearly starved them out. But even she could not break the fortress of Masagano. Without heavy artillery, her troops could not storm its walls. Then in 1648, the tide turned again. A Portuguese fleet under Salvador Correa de Sá retook Luanda. The Dutch abandoned Angola and sailed away. Nzinga once again refused to kneel. She withdrew to Mutamba and shifted from offense to endurance, focused on limiting Portuguese reach, harassing their forces, and turning smaller kingdoms and tribes against them.
In her later years, Nzinga did something remarkable. She reinvented herself again. She welcomed Capuchin missionaries, often Spaniards, not Portuguese, into her court. Corresponded with church leaders and even the Pope. Wove Christian symbols and rituals into her royal ceremonies. Built churches, promoted education, and cultivated a Christian elite loyal to her. She did not simply surrender to European religion, she appropriated it, as she had with Mbangala culture. Traditionalist priests who opposed her were whipped, sold into slavery, or exiled. Shrines that defied her were destroyed. The kingdom's laws were reformed, concubinage abolished, and she even married her longtime consort in a Christian ceremony. By merging Mbundo tradition, Mbangala military culture, and Catholic forms, Nzinga turned Matamba into a recognized Christian kingdom in Central Africa, but one still ruled entirely on her terms.
By the 1650s, both Nzinga and the Portuguese were tired of war. Angola had been drained by decades of conflict. Portugal itself was fighting for its own independence in Europe. In 1656, after years of negotiation, Nzinga and Portugal signed a peace treaty. Borders were drawn between Matamba and Portuguese Angola. Nzinga gained recognition as sovereign ruler. The slave trade was concentrated in her capital, giving her an economic chokehold. Each side agreed to protect the other from certain enemies. Crucially, Nzinga won the release of her sister, Kambu, or Barbara, whom she named as her heir. In her final years, she rebuilt Matamba, resettled former slaves, relaxed wartime bans on childbirth, recentered the court around royal and Christian institutions, and worked timelessly to ensure a smooth succession. She feared that after her death, Mbangala, hardliners and anti-Christian forces would tear her work apart and invite Portuguese domination all over again. So she held on, ruling with iron will into her 80s.
In late 1663, Nzinga fell gravely ill. In December, the infection spread to her lungs. On December 17, 1663, Queen Nzinga Mbande, or just Nzinga Mbande because Mbande is her title, Angola too, of Ndongo and Queen of Matamba died in her sleep. She was buried with both Mbundu tradition and Catholic rites, mourned in Matamba and even in Luanda. Her sister Kambu took the throne after her.
Nzinga's story is many things at once. A tale of ruthless survival in a world carved up by muskets and slavery. A story of a woman who became a warlord, diplomat, and ruler in an age stacked against her. A saga of constant reinvention: warrior princess, royal envoy, fugitive, Mbagala general, Matamban monarch, Christian sovereign. Centuries later, statues of Nzinga stand in Angola. Her name echoes in Atlantic and African diasporic memory as a queen who refused to kneel, the strategist who bends empires, and the woman who turned survival into sovereignty. And she's often referred to as King Nzinga because of her. Is it the which one means? Is it the Ndogo title?
Ndongo, yes.
Yeah. So we hear King Nzinga a lot because that is really, I guess, more of a direct translation.
And because there really were no queens in Africa.
Yeah, bro.
They were kings or the wife of a king, not a queen.
Right.
But she could have been called Queen Nzinga too, because she was a Christian too.
Right.
She adopted Christianity. But In traditional Africa, the title queen really doesn't exist until colonization.
Yeah, bro. I didn't get to read a lot of the comments, but I love these stories. I mean, with Nzinga, you see all the reinvention and her, making sure that she maintained power, but changing so that she could still be in charge of, her land and her people. And then you hear about these other stories with, I think, Brother Samori, where he, he had success to a certain extent, but died in exile. But still, his name is legend. And there's other ones that I have to go back, but I mean, these are great stories that we definitely should be teaching to our young people, because the thing about the rule that we've been under for so long is that they make themselves sound undefeatable. I was watching this when they post these short videos of people going around interviewing people, and one of the questions was, how many what percentage of people on earth are white, and somebody said like 60. And
Yeah.
one person got it right. I think he said like 7 or 8%. And the thing about it is, I mean, it's just constantly shrinking. So 7 or 8% of people being the rulers of over 90% of the world population, being completely undefeatable when they need us, they need at least part of us to be backing them in order for them to stay in the position that they're in. It's impossible. It's an untenable position that they're in. And hearing these stories helps us understand how, even though you might not be the one who defeats everything, you can be part of the part of the people who, you can be one of the people who turns them back. And then the next person can do something else, and the next person can do something else. And it's important that we know that.
Right. Now, yes, Nzinga, or call it Nzinga, it means one who twists. There's a story about Nzinga, and this comes from Portuguese people, not from Angolans. They said that when she was in her 70s, she did a martial arts demonstration where she fought 70, one for each of her age. It was for her birthday. She fought 70 men. Now, of course, it was a demonstration, but still, that takes a lot of endurance.
Oh, yeah.
And you're 70 years old. She fought 70 men, and she defeated them, but she apologized because it took her 30 minutes. When she was younger, she would have defeated 70 men in like 15 minutes. That is incredible, because I'm 57. I'm not doing no demonstration with 70 people.
Yeah, I mean, I cannot think of any person who I know who's 70 years old that would even attempt something like that.
Right.
I was watching.
That goes along with her name, one who twists, because she was twisting and doing demonstrations, disarming, throwing them.
And then, I mean, culture, the confidence of her, and even the culture surrounding her is also something that would allow that type of environment, and would allow her to believe that she could do that. I was watching this video the other day with these I think it was, I can't remember which martial art it was, but there was an elder who was a Yoruba. I think he was Russian, but he does this move on his grandson that comes in the room and like does this double leg takedown on him, and it's like when here you don't really see a lot of elders, actual elders engaging in that type of wrestling. That's a cultural thing. So we need to take that on in our culture, and help us understand. Like there were several of these stories where they were elders and they were still, doing their thing. Like we need to understand that we have got to adopt that. That's something that we need, because a lot of times with the younger people in our culture, they don't start to understand until they start, because of what's dominated all around us. They don't really start to understand things till they get a little older. So we need to understand we're still useful even when we get older, up until the elder ages. We need to still be striving.
And even in our 80s and 90s, we can still give advice.
Yeah, bro. Absolutely. Say old men for counsel, young men for war.
Right. And that is very true. But young is relative. So if a fight broke out in my neighborhood, I'm sure that not only would I be counseling people, I'd be leading people in war. Even though I live around other cops and cops and judges, and that don't mean nothing. In fact, shit, I look at most of these folks, they're
not fit.
They could probably survive for a few hours, but that'd be it. So, if I had to lead this neighborhood, I could do that against a violent enemy.
Yeah, bro.
When I'm
you should.
When I'm in my 70s, could I do that? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't know.
Yes, Baba, you can. I'm putting it out there.
In 80s, 90s, like my mother is 94. No, that ain't happening. At 94, I'll be counseling some folks though.
Yeah, bro.
Hit that motherfucker right there. Shit.
Well, the great thing about you is that you have, and many of the people that we covered, is that you have passed your knowledge on so effectively to so many that I will even say we feel confident in leadership positions when it comes to shit hits the fan type situations, because we have studied so long and have heard so much of your wisdom. So I wanted to let's see. I Manifesto says, I think she adopted Christianity for political purposes and leverage. Yeah. Obviously, of course she did. Because just like with the woman, I can't remember her name, but one of the first people who we covered, how she went and became queen, in the of the enemy. Found out that the people dressed in the raffia were just people. And then
Moremi. Moremi.
Right. So, obviously, even, we hear about the some of the I cannot remember the names. I got to do some memory exercises. Some of the African spiritual practices that they have in I want to say they're more like Latin countries or Hispanic, you know how they adopt like each one of the they all have a Catholic counterpart. You know,
Orisha.
yeah, each one of the Orisha. I thought they called them something else though. That's why I couldn't. But each one has a Catholic counterpart. I remember talking to a brother at a festival, or not a festival, at a conference, and he was talking about how he would go to Nigeria, and he would be in a place, and they would be doing all these rituals at night, like everywhere. It was widespread in this region. He said he would go back the next day and try to figure out where he had been, and hey, you know, wasn't this going on or whatever, and the people would act like they didn't know what he was talking about. So yeah, you know, that's something that we have always done and are still doing.
Right. Right.
Thank you, Eugene. I appreciate you.
Somebody said that She Who Twists would be the name of their natural hair salon if they had one. Nzinga.
That's great. Yeah, that's a great name.
Yeah.
Jadarian says, quite right. The issue is, even if these religions are taken on for political reasons, they get a hold of our people and are hard to let go of. Definitely, if you're not teaching your children, hey, this is why we're doing this. Right. If you're just sending them to the church and letting them indoctrinate them, absolutely. But you know, if you're educating them and letting them know what this is actually for, and that's something that we have to do better with, then we can, you know, at least in the short term, adopt some of these practices of, you know, our enemies.
Right. The Empress Rain says, hi everyone, happy Warrior Days. Saints, you mean? Yes. So each Orisha is linked to a Catholic saint.
Right. Right. Thank you so much. Thank you for the words, everyone. I mean, I had the thought. Now, Manifesto said young is relative to one's health. Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
Your physical and mental health.
Yeah, bro. Absolutely. So, you know, I know that's part of why we go over health in warrior class. That's why health is always part of our news. That's why we do shows talking about health, herbs, different things like that, mental health. Like, we've done shows on all these things because those are all parts of being an effective warrior. Not just making war, fighting, knowledge of tools, but all of those things go together.
So Baba is like customado. So
that makes us Mike Tyson.
Yeah, kind of, I guess. You know.
Let's see.
Except I'm making people for actual war, not to fight in the ring, but yeah.
Yeah, bro.
Now, Cuss is a great coach, though. God damn. And I've seen videos of him. He was getting down like Tyson, you know. So, Baba, do you think a military type leadership in service of the people is needed continent wide in Africa today? I think it's needed in Africa, in the diaspora.
Yeah, bro.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the thing about it is,
especially what they're planning for now, Santeria is one. Another is,
that's what I was trying to think of.
Another is Lukumi. But Lukumi actually uses the Orisha. Yes, Santeria is one. There's a few. Mbande. You have a few religions like that.
Yeah, bro. Thank y'all. I appreciate that. There was something I was gonna say.
Santeria is spelled Santeria. Santeria. Not Santa like Santa. The old motherfucker from the North Pole and shit. It's not Santeria. It's Santeria.
That's funny. So, greetings, Brittany. How you doing, sis? We still ain't seen you in class.
Yeah.
We want to stay on you. Brittany, whatever you're waiting for. Huh?
The Empress Reign says Chicago style warrior. Yeah, exactly.
That's Baba. Mm-hmm. But I was going to tell our good sister Brittany, whatever you're waiting for, you just might as well come, because I promise you.
Yeah.
People wait for all type physical fitness, all kinds of things. They wait and say they're not. Oh, well, I'll start coming to class when this happens.
Yeah, they'll look, or they'll try to come to the bathtub clean. After I lift some weights and get some, some striking under my belt. Man, you don't go to the bathtub clean. You go to the bathtub when you're dirty.
Yeah, bro. No matter what kind of dirt it is.
And we'll clean you up.
Yeah, bro.
The issue is, even if these religions are taken on for political reasons, they get a hold of our people and are hard to let go of. Yeah, you said that. Yeah, that's very true. No matter where the religion's from, once we get a hold of it, it's hard for us to let it go or to use it for its intended purpose.
Right.
We forget its purpose. But even more than just religion, I was told, and I think I've said this before, I was told by a martial, a capoeira master. He said, man, it's not about self-defense, it's about dance. It's about dance. I said, fuck you.
Right.
Fuck you. You're going to teach our people that it's about dancing? So we just start dancing when the police invade our neighborhoods. And you see that, because when I remember,
yes, I was gonna say
George Floyd, when he was murdered, and people were protesting, the cops were standing. I forget what city it's from, and this brother, he crumping inside. I said, man, look at this fucking clown.
There was a sister here, Baba, who I went to elementary and high school with, who was proudly posting on her Facebook page. She had put together some type of thing with the police, where they were all doing the one of them slides or shuffles or whatever. They were all coming together to do that, and I was like, and this is the same time during the whole George Floyd uprising, after what happened to him. And I'm looking like, the things that make us feel good are so twisted. We don't understand that. We think just because it feels good that it's right.
And the police know that.
Right.
If they're dancing with us and shit, they dancing and they thinking, I'm gonna kill this nigga as soon as I get a chance.
If I can, it could be immediately afterward. It could be during. If they get the call,
right,
they're gonna turn and show you who they really are while you still dancing.
I mean,
Yeah.
you see that with ICE. You see how ICE is treating our people.
Yeah,
They're not treating the people no different from any other paid agent of the state, paid armed agent of the state.
right. Yeah, they make it sound so worse, but I mean, our people have been going through that forever. And
Right.
I was gonna speak about. I'm sorry, Baba. Excuse me. I didn't mean to cut you.
No, you know it.
When I was reading, I think it was I Manifesto's comment about the how we. I hope it was I Manifesto. How we hold on to the religion.
No, that's Jadarian, I believe.
Oh, Jadarian. Excuse me, Jadarian. That it is the problem with being religious minded about things, like how you spoke about capoeira, and how we get into these things where we just want to believe, because that's what that is, that you want to believe that when you start to dance that these things are going to happen, because it relieves you of responsibility. Someone is coming to save us from all of this. I don't have to do anything. It is that mindset that is the most dangerous, and it happens so often among our people because of what we've been through. But that really is what is dangerous about all of that.
Right. Yeah. The religion of Islam, the reason why it is much more feared than Christianity is because they don't take the fighter out of you. But, well, I'll just say that. They don't take the fighter out of you. In fact, in their religion, it speaks about you defending yourself. You defend, your home, the mosque. You fight if you have to. The reason why in the African traditions, you're not just taught to fight, but you have a god of war.
Yeah, Bob.
And that's in all African traditions. They have a god of war. So for me, that was even more attractive than Islam. I was in Islam first, and then I moved to the African traditions.
Yeah, Bob. I think quite.
But I had a priest tell me one time. He said, he said this. I don't defend myself. I don't have to, because spirit gonna defend me. I said, man, get the fuck out of here. That was before I was a priest, but I was a Balogun, which is a war chief, so I can speak up on certain things. I'm a priest now. No priest has ever told me I can't defend myself and my family.
Yeah, Bob.
And they're not going to do it. They're not going to do that. And if a priest tries to tell me that, I'll tell them, shut the fuck up. You can't tell me I can't defend my family and myself. You can't tell me that. You can't tell me to just dance. The fuck out of here. In fact, there's a story about in Ifa about Shango. Shango had the martial arts, but he wanted to dance. He had wrestling, but he wanted to dance. And he didn't give up his dance. He gave up the ashe of dance of wrestling to Ifa. And Ifa gave him the ashe of dancing. After Ifa gives him the ashe of dancing, I mean, he was still a king and everything, but Ifa became way richer from wrestling, from defeating other people, and then not defeating. So he wrestled with this king. He had divination, and divination told him to lose to the king. He said, lose to the king? I don't lose. He said, lose to the king. Lose to the king, and you will get richer than you are now. And he lost to the king on purpose. And the king was so happy that he won that he gave Ifa half of his kingdom. But you can only do that if you got the power to do that. You can only lose if you got the power to win, unless you're losing for real.
Yeah.
When I remember when my son was young, you know, I let him throw me around, do whatever to me, because I know that I could actually toss him out the window if I had to.
Right.
Until he actually could throw me. And I knew that from, now he was throwing other grown men, but he could actually throw me when we brought in the brother from Senegal to teach a workshop. And I paired up with him. And goddamn, I was like, damn, Ade, you throwing the hell out of me. Let me return the favor. And so we were just throwing the hell out of each other. That's when I know that I have taught my son well. I lose to him when he's little to build the confidence. And then when he got the confidence, mix that with the skill, he'll be able to wreck stuff. And now he showed a video of him sparring with this brother when he crossed over and became a Kappa. My son's a Kappa Alpha Psi. When he crossed over and became a Kappa, he had to spar with one of the big brothers. And he took the dude out. I said, well, you're supposed to, you know. You're supposed to take him out. He said, yeah, but you know, I had to pay for it after, but I couldn't let him get off on me. I said, yeah, because he's not your son. But one day, when you have a son, you let your son win when he's young. And then when he gets older, you start letting him know he can't win against you until he can. You gotta let you know that.
Yeah, bro.
There's
two. I'm sorry, Bob.
Yeah, go ahead.
There's two comments I wanted to address. One, I'm going to do, well, I'm sure you're going to have something to say about the first one, and the second one will be for you, I'm guessing. But this one, in real capoeira, this is nine memes. I cannot see. 9 memes. In real capoeira, the dance Nzinga is to learn footwork and deception, not dancing. Just like in dances of Salat, or in the dances of Salat, what he learned is the watered down. Okay, so I don't know how versed you are in this, if you actually practice it, but are your hands in that real capoeira? Are your hands still committed to the ground in most of the forms that you do?
Well, I don't do capoeira. But
no, I'm talking about, I'm asking this person who's speaking on it. if the hands are still committed to the ground? Like in the footwork that you're doing, are you still committing your hands to the ground? So I guess we can wait on them to answer. If you have something to say about it, you can, Baba. But I thought you might want to answer this question for Brittany, which is, this is going to sound silly, but did you feel super disconnected from yourself and roots before studying African spirituality?
I feel disconnected from. I feel ignorant. At first I thought I knew something, and then because I studied from the Nation of Islam, and you'll find that in the Nation of Islam, the brothers and sisters are sure they know something. Sure, they know something.
Yeah, in the congregations,
and they know more than Christians and more than most Muslims do too, to be honest. But I still didn't know shit. And I was a minister in the Nation of Islam. And I learned that all that I had learned in the Nation of Islam, that a lot of that stuff, it comes from African spirituality. But it's watered down, it's tailored to fit the Nation of Islam. And I say that because there's this brother who's in the Nation. And I said, you know how the Nation talks about God is a man. I said, that's in African spirituality too. God is a man and a woman. So if you have the name, like I got Balogun, Ogunyemi, I have names of Ogun because I am Ogun. I got Arak Baye, Thunder's Universal, name of Shango, because I am Shango. See, we and Odu says, Okanorosa, which the Odu are the bodies of knowledge. And Odu says, Okanorosa says, what good is the cutlass except human beings pick it up? What good is the rake except human beings pick it up? Okay. Which means all these tools, all these things that you use, what good are they except human beings pick them up? What good is your religion unless you recognize that a man or a woman is the house of your religion? I told this brother that. He said, man, that's just, you got that from the Nation of Islam. I said, so I just stole that from the Nation of Islam. I stole that from the Nation of Islam. I stole Okanran Osa from the Nation of Islam. Get the hell out of here. When Okanran Osa existed for thousands of years before the Nation of Islam did.
Yeah, bro.
Tens of thousands of years.
Yeah. They did the same thing as Santeria.
And well, Santeria is an offshoot of Islam. I mean, Ifa, and that's known.
No, but I'm saying they did the opposite. They took from Ifa and brought it into the Nation of Islam.
And so did the Nation of Islam. It talks about Master Muhammad speaking the language of the birds. That is a symbolic. The language of the birds. The birds are in Ifa. That's on a Ifa priest crown. He spoke 10 languages and 6 dialects. That's 16. 16 is the number that's sacred in Ifa. All that stuff is see, when I came to Ifa, I realized where all that stuff came from. But until you deal with something else, you're not gonna know.
Right.
So a lot of people, the giants in the nation, they don't know because they don't study nothing but the Bible and the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. But the world's bigger than that.
Because they think they know something. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a capoeira practitioner, but no, not committed, but used to generate power from the ground after you make your attacker miss.
So he's saying the hands are not committed to the ground.
I guess their hands, but capoeira's hands are committed to the ground.
Yeah, that's what he's talking about.
Capoeira's hands are committed to the ground.
If you have some videos of that style, please.
Either one hand is committed to the ground or 2 hands. So in Angola, it's 2 hands. In Haitianal, it's 1 hand. So, oh yeah. And that immediately lets you know one is not African, but it's also not combative. If a person sweeps me and I land on my hands, that's one thing. I got to respond to that. But I got tools. I got to be able to use my tools. And if I got my tool out and he sweeps me, knocks me down, believe me, I'm holding on to my tool. And I'm going to shoot from the ground, or I'm going to get up and shoot, or get up and stab, or what have you. But if you commit both hands to the ground, both of your hands are committed to the earth, we know that when you do an arm bar, you arm bar one arm, then you step under the nose and make the other hand hit the earth. So you don't have to deal with that person because both his hands are grounded.
Yep.
And now then you just break them off. We know that. But capoeira don't know that.
Right. And also your legs are flesh. I don't know any style of capoeira. Do they have like some type of armor or something to keep your legs from being affected by tools? But
no.
If your legs are flesh and your flesh is meeting someone who has a tool in their hand, then that is a fundamental flaw. If that is what everything is based on,
especially because the legs have the femoral artery in them, and the femoral artery runs from 4 fingers above your ankle up to the groin. So at any point, I can just stick my knife out or a machete and it will cut your femoral artery and you are going to bleed out soon. I made a comment earlier, the Mbangala fighting arts are in theory the base for capoeira. People say that. People say that Mbangala fighting arts are the basis of capoeira. I don't know, but I know if it is, it don't look like capoeira today. I know that. I'm not a let me see, yeah. So it's capoeira today. So what I learned is that the Ngolo, the zebra dance, was where the acrobatics and all that come from. First of all, I've never seen an acrobatic zebra, but if they call it the zebra dance, the acrobatics and all that, that was to get wives. You were showing off, showing your athletic skill, your athletic ability to get a wife. Not on the battlefield. You are not doing a cartwheel on the damn battlefield. Only in a kung fu movie. Only in a kung fu movie. You're not doing a cartwheel on the battlefield. You ain't doing most of what you see in capoeira on the battlefield. You're not.
You're wrong. At least what I've seen. I can't think of
I've seen 3 different styles. I've seen capoeira Angola, capoeira Haitianal, and capoeira Senzala. And I'm talking about from maestros, masters of it. And you're not using it on the battlefield. You're not.
So again, I talked about. I'm sorry.
I saw this one master. He is well known too. Goddamn. Doing capoeira Angola, and woo boy, he's fast. God damn, he's fast. But you know what's faster than he is? A dude swinging a machete. You know what's faster than he is? A dude shooting a gun. Those things are faster by people not even trained. So somebody trained, they'll tear them apart.
I said too last week that we had a pause, and I was talking about taking on other arts, because there are lots of people who train in more than one. If you feel committed to capoeira either as a dance or, I shudder to say self-defense, but if that's what you are committed to, then at least pick up something else that, you is more actually effective combat wise. Learn how to do throws, pick up something that has tools.
Yeah, something. I mean, pick up if you're gonna do that, do capoeira, do some Brazilian jiu-jitsu, because you're gonna end up on the ground. Of course, you go to the ground to do both of them, and a screamer or some stand up, thing
like judo, right? Where you
can
throw.
Now I would say judo, as long as it's not so much into the Olympics. Yes. I know some jiu-jitsu and judo practitioners who will kill you out here. They use it as, I mean, they also train people to compete for the Olympics and stuff, but the jiu-jitsu I know, they train for self-defense. It's very, very, very prepared for that. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, not so much. It's if Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is fighting somebody and they go down to the ground, or you take them down to the ground, you tear them up. But if they have a tool, you're in trouble. So you better be using a screamer or a pinchas a lot, something like that, which is tool oriented. Now, if they have a gun, you better be using a gun too. I hesitate to teach gun disarms because I won't say they're unrealistic, but I will say to disarm a gun is very difficult. And if you make one mistake, and that will happen out here, especially
Under stress and duress.
Under stress and duress, you're going to get torn up. I had a student who I was training him, to shoot. And oh man, he was busting him. Until
he
I
may
said, okay,
be in the comments.
And I got behind him, boom, shot behind his head. I said, keep shooting. And he was missing every shot after that. Because now he got to try to shoot under stress and duress. And he couldn't do it. Most people couldn't. Most people, if somebody shoots by your head, you're gonna miss. And just like if somebody's shooting at you, the reason why most people miss when somebody shoots at them, because they're under stress and duress. Right. They're trying to act while scared shitless. They're thinking about the poop that's in their pants. Because it'll be poop in your pants. Haven't we had this conversation about the limit of capoeira in combat?
We are constantly having this conversation.
Yeah, right. So there are constantly people online who swear by its effectiveness, and we swear by its ineffectiveness for self-defense. And that's why he failed the pressure test. Yes, he failed the pressure test. Yes.
And so many of us would.
Right. Most would fail the pressure test. And in fact, I would do it to him again today, and I bet you he still failed it. That dude who decapitated a man with machete in Texas was horrific. Just went before a judge recently. I don't know who that was. Damn,
I haven't heard about that one.
Took a man's head off. That's
young warrior right here.
Yeah, this is my daughter, Okikiola.
Hey, Okiki.
Hi.
And I'm trying to control her movements because she all over the place. I really want. I want her mother or somebody to come get her. Okay.
Aww. You look pretty, Okiki. I like your hair. It's beautiful. They did not hear you, Baba. Oh, okay.
She heard me. Yemi's here. She heard me.
Bye, Mama. Hey, that's the other Okiki. Oh, hey.
Well, she was the youngest until she was born.
Yeah. Aww,
she was child number 8, and she's child number 9.
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good.
It's good to see you, darling.
Yes, you too.
Oh, whoa! All right.
One of them zebra moves.
Yeah, she tried to squirm out her arms and almost fell. Now she's laughing. I remember when she was born, she's adorable. Yeah. I remember when she was born too. Yeah. I remember the day she was born. Let me see. What else did Darian say here? Hold on. I'm trying to move this damn thing up.
I Manifesto says she's twisting like Nzinga.
Yeah, exactly. If a person moves to Africa, would it be useful to learn the wrestling arts? Oh, yes, indeed.
Oh my goodness.
If you move to Africa, any continent, and you're not learning to wrestle, well, I said to you all, what the fuck were you thinking? Yes, you should go there. In fact, I've had a student, he went to Senegal, and he said, I'm going to Senegal. I'll be there for 2 weeks. I said, okay, give it to wrestlers. And send us a picture. I said, in fact, I'll write you a letter. And I did. He presented them with the letter. And he went with them. And he said it was very interesting. They wake them up 4:30 in the morning and they go running. And then after the run's over, now they train until about 10 o'clock. Well, he would train till about 10 o'clock, then he'd go do whatever he had to do. They don't play.
Yeah, that's the real. That's where you want to be there any period of time.
Yeah, a week, 2 weeks, a month, a year. Please train. Isn't that why they say you practice until things become muscle memory so that when the stress kicks in, training will also? Yes. Yes, but most people, their training does not include shots.
Right.
And mine does, but most people's training does not. So all these dudes you see on the internet, and they doing all this amazing shooting, and I say, okay, can you do that under stress and duress though? I venture that most of them cannot. Now, there's some that probably can, but most of them probably cannot. I remember when she was born. Oh, yeah.
Muscle memory is definitely important, but yeah.
Oh, yeah.
If you're not training with people shooting around you constantly, it's not the same thing.
Yes. That dude who kept it, man, let's see. Haven't we had this conversation about capoeira? Yeah. Baby cameo. Yes, it was. I made a comment earlier in my capoeira was also a disguise because our history had to be hidden constantly. So the dance was betrayed as a dance, but it is not. It is a warrior stance. Now, on that, that's a lie that capoeira people tell. We disguise it as a dance, but it's really a war thing. Bullshit. In Brazil, especially, they banned everything African dance, the drum, everything was banned that was African because those crackers feared Africa so much. They knew if we let these niggas drum, they can communicate with the drum. We let them dance, they communicate with the dance. They didn't allow anything African in Brazil. Not the dance, not capoeira, none of it. Capoeira came about later. It did not come about. It wasn't in slavery. And it wasn't dealing with our hands being shackled. None of that is true. Think about it now. Shit, you think in America we could have gotten away with the dance, but we hiding stick fighting? Hell no. We're hiding boxing in the dance?
Right.
No. They wouldn't allow anything African, especially that. The cracker knows too that you can hide techniques of war in the dance movements. There's a statement now in the Odu, and they study our works. In the Odu, it says, the dancing ground is rowdy. The battlefield is rowdy. That is telling you that the battlefield and the dancing ground can be one and the same. But they're usually not. There's more to that Odu, but they're usually not one and the same, but they can be. Well, when crackers got a hold of our Odu, which isn't written, it's spoken. It's written down now. You can find it, but it's spoken. They called people who taught the Odu informants. Why do they call them informants? Because they were informing crackers about our movements, about our culture. So they would call informants. So the cracker long knew that you can hide movement in the dance. You can hide communication in the drums. They knew this before capoeira. They knew. So don't believe that that's a lie that capoeira people are telling, or I don't. Whoever originated that lie, capoeira people just have grasped that, and they're telling a lie because they're grasping over belief. But they a lot of them think that's true because they don't study history. History let us know that is not the truth. It's not the truth. This topic is mostly about guerrilla warfare and hand-to-hand combat. Today's warriors have to use drones, poison, drugs, and diseases. They have to recover from those weapons. And those also are guerrilla warfare. Using drones, using poison. They've been using poison. We've been using poison for thousands of years. But drugs, diseases, using the food, all of that. That's warfare.
Yeah, bro.
That's biological warfare. Well, biological warfare existed hundreds of years ago. I saw something about rucking being good for your health recently in joints. Yes, yes. Hey, it's good. I've heard people in the military use the term OODA loop. What does that mean? We ain't never used no term OODA loop. I don't know what that means. And it depends on which military it is.
Right.
We didn't use OODA loop.
Who says ooh-ah?
Ooh-ah is used by the army. It's hua.
Oh, hua. My bad.
Now, the Marines, they say something similar. They say, I think they say hoorah, or they say something similar. But we say hua. So your sergeant will say, we're going to do so-and-so, huh? And they're like, huh! So he's saying like, yeah? You say, yeah. Wow. That's in the army. But I believe the Marines say hoorah.
Oh, right. Okay. So maybe it's a Marine thing. Manifesto sounds like a Willy Wonka word.
Oompa Loompa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who were Africans in the book?
Huh?
I said, who were Africans in the book? In the original, whatever, I think it's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory book, they were pygmies, the Oompa Loompas.
Oompa Loompas.
Basically, they were enslaved.
Yeah. You know, there's a knife called the Hungamunga. It's a 9-bladed throwing knife.
Wow.
It's called the Hungamunga.
Hungamunga.
Yeah.
Oh, let's see.
Yes, but not enough is being taught that will protect people or teach them to heal. OODA loop, a term coined by John Boyd. Sorry, I got it wrong. The Navy men say, hurry up and wait. Army men do it too. Hurry up and wait.
I think that's a pretty widespread term.
Yeah.
They say that among movie extras also.
He was an Air Force guy. OODA loop. I don't know. I have to ask my sister if she's heard that. She was a major in the Air Force. I have to ask her if she's heard that.
What the Empress Reign says, not enough being taught that will protect people and teach them to heal, because those are fundamental things. So you know that earlier, Baba, you were talking about, what did you say about how often it is that there are war chiefs in African culture. It was something you were saying about that, and it's because, or I don't know if it's African spirituality, how there's war addressed in African spirituality, because fundamentally we understand that you have to be, that's the first thing, you have to be able to defend yourself. You can't practice anything if you can't defend yourself. In America, they say you only have the rights you can defend. And if you can't, that's part of the safety thing. That's part of the food, clothing, shelter. That's a basic thing. So yeah, if you teach people away from that, then you're teaching them away from basic common sense.
And people have gotten away from that. So I know many people who are activists, revolutionaries, what have you, and all of them are willing to fight, but most can't.
Right.
Killer Mike did he was part of a panel, and he said, how many of you all know martial arts? And he said, you can't, you're not ready for shit. You talk about you're ready, you're not ready for shit. And the people were mad at him. They were getting mad at him.
He himself, though, is not ready for, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, well, yeah, but he does train in martial arts, and I'm sure he knows how to shoot. I would think, but he does train in martial arts. He used to train regularly in martial arts, even at his big size. But the question he was asking, there was people, and some people I know too. People in the audience, they were going off. You didn't say that, and they had an emotional response, but they should have had a realistic response. He was telling them the truth.
Yeah, first, definitely.
That you're not ready to do all that you say that you're going to do.
Yeah, Bob.
You're not. You're not. People talk about, we're going to be like the BLA. You're not. You're not going to be like the BLA. If you ain't even trained at all, you're not going to be like the BLA. Got to be realistic about yourself, about the people around you, about your family. And what we do in warrior class is we're going to get you ready either because you want to be ready or despite your lack of readiness. Biological warfare of COVID is not known. It's an ongoing topic that is developed innovatively. Many die in ignorance. That's true. He just interviewed Soju Steve Muhammad for his podcast. Yes, he did. I saw the interview he did with Steve Muhammad. It was very interesting. Killer Mike's dad was a police officer. His dad probably taught him to shoot and defend himself. I'm sure he did. I'm sure he did. Diabetes, high blood pressure, and the things are top murderers of black folks. Yes.
Right. Ignorance.
Diabetes, high blood pressure, cancer, and yes, it all adds up to ignorance.
Right. Those two in particular are completely
our people and other people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge. Saw a clip on modern warfare, how to beat and evade drones and those land drone robotic dogs with guns mounted on top. Yeah. There are also ways, by the way, that you can beat, if you got enough time, you can beat a nuclear blast unless you're in ground zero. But if it's a mile away or something like that, you can save yourself. Boy, it'd be uncomfortable, but boy, you can save yourself. If you got a basement. If you don't have a basement, well, oh well. Well, wise man said, revolutionary will without revolutionary skill will get revolutionary skill. Yes, yeah, exactly.
Very wise.
Especially point. So if you got the will, that's good. You're part way there. You got to have the skill too, yes. And then it might not get you killed.
Yeah, bro.
Like if a nuclear bomb went off a mile away, 5 miles away. I say 5 miles because a mile wouldn't give me enough time. 5 miles away, you see the flash in the sky and all that. I immediately get to work. So moving down to the basement, take a table down to the basement, garbage bags filled with dirt, put them around. So the radiation travels down. So you put the bags of dirt and water on top of the bag, on top of the table. You use a long table or two. You put bags around that, and you use, we'll do an episode on this, but you use cardboard to make air, to circulate the air. But you're going to be hot as hell down there. Use books on top. You gotta use as much as you can to block that radiation coming down. And you can survive. Now you're gonna have to stay up under that table with all that dirt on it and all that for some days. You're gonna have to pee under that. You gotta take food under there. It's going to be risky, but you can survive it. At ground zero, you cannot survive a nuclear blast. But If you're not at ground zero, 3 miles out, 5 miles out, 10 miles out, 30 miles out, you can survive.
Thank you for that, Baba.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll do an episode on that. Probably not this next episode, but we'll do an episode on it. Probably when Belay gets back, we'll do an episode on surviving nuclear attacks, or just surviving unconventional attacks, because it'd be more than nuclear, surviving biological. Yes, we had those drills as children. You had drills against nuclear attacks where you put garbage bags and stuff up on the tables and stuff. Wow. Or you just had drills where y'all got against
duck and cover
against the walls, right, in the nuclear blast and that. Now, when you get something like a earthquake, I'll tell you this: an earthquake situation, if you hide under the table, you just hid in a death trap, because as things fall down, like the ceiling and all that table can fall on you and fuck you up. You get beside the table. That's safer than getting under the table in an earthquake situation. Just to let you know.
Wow.
Now, not that fallout shelter. Now, we in elementary school, I remember very clearly, we were told, if it's a bomb, run down to the fallout shelter. Now, when I moved,
Baba. He froze for me. Can y'all let me know if he froze for you as well? Maybe last week we'll just kind of cycle out and then come back in. But anyone? I guess I'm behind in the chats. I don't know much about fallout shelters or anything like that. I can't speak to that. But okay, so Baba froze. Is that right? I'm really grateful for this show today in particular. Of course, always grateful for all of you, but learning so much about, these warriors. Someone asked if we were going to address women. We always do that. Baba has such admiration for women and understanding of how we all fit and work together. It's something that we sadly hear less and less about now, because that's another part of the warfare that they're making on us, is us, women against men, as though we can survive without each other. I saw a brother posted this video and now you may have seen it in the last 2 or 3 days, where they're going around asking, would you live on a planet with only women? Would you live on a planet, going around asking? And of course, it was cut, so who knows what all the answers were. But all of the women that they showed said yes, that they would live on a planet with just women, which is foolishness. And all of the men said no, as though it was the most absurd thing they had ever heard. And so, it's just funny the way that they're trying to pit us against each other. But the thing about all of us here, all of the people in the chat, even the lurkers, we're able to make our voice heard in our community. We're able to talk to the people who are close to us. And that's really how we are able to make change, is by talking to the people close to us. Change starts in kind of the heart and the mind. So, there may be people who you see who are, affected by some of these trends. And sometimes there's nothing you can say to them, but the people who can come under your influence and who can see sense, like, we just need to talk. It's just like all of these warriors that we talked about today, and how they made these small contributions. Maybe they did die in exile. And I spoke about this. Maybe they did die in exile. Maybe they, whatever they did wasn't perfect. Maybe they had to sacrifice, but the thing about it is they move forward. And that's what we can do in our communities is just help, step by step moving forward. So I'm not sure if Baba's going to come back. We're definitely past our time here for the show. I don't even know who's after us on here, but whatever men said no just gave up the ultimate exalted existence. That's from I Manifesto. No man on camera said no. One of them kind of said he didn't say yes. Let's see. I'm sorry. No men said yes. Yeah, none of the men said yes. One of them was kind of like halfway with it, but he had his reasons. Oh, Baba said he's not going to come back. Okay, so in the words of Baba, we love y'all. Stay black, or whatever it is that you are. Stay chiseled. Keep your head on swivel out here. And we'll see you next week. Peace.